to speak on their topic. A couple of housekeeping items. If you are not a member of the committee, please turn your camera off when you are not speaking on an item. If you are joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6. Could we get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Emily. I'll move to approve.
Can we get a second?
This is Jesse. I'll second.
All right. Any discussion, any additions? Any opposition to the agenda as written? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved. Did we get the meeting minutes sent out for the December 4th meeting?
They would have been sent out along with the agenda, but they are also here.
Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? All right, any corrections to the minutes for the December 4th meeting? Could we get a motion to approve the minutes as written?
This is Matt.
Emily.
I move to approve.
Can we get a
This is
second?
Emily. I'll second.
Thank you. Any opposition? Seeing and hearing none, the minutes are approved, which brings us to our election. So we're supposed to elect a chair and vice chair at our first meeting of each year. And over the last couple of months, I was thinking about this. I don't think we've had an election for at least 3 years. So I've been doing this for a while. So I think we need some new blood as chair of the committee. I've enjoyed serving as chair. I will continue to serve on the committee, but I would like, we'll open it up for if somebody would like to nominate themselves or nominate another member of the committee for chair.
This is Matt. Can we nominate somebody who's not here yet, but who serves on the committee? I guess she would have to be here in order to accept or decline.
Yeah, the problem I think with that, that's how my friend Sharon Shamar got elected to the board of the Fairview Community Council 20 years ago. I nominated her as secretary while she was out of state, and she didn't appreciate it, I don't think, but she's still on the board 20 years later. So I would say it should probably be somebody who's here that could accept the nomination.
Right. I was thinking of Lindsay, but I know she's very busy and maybe doesn't have the bandwidth, but that was my first thought.
I thought about nominating her or Emily or a couple of other members. Well, I'll nominate Emily if nobody's going to nominate anyone.
Is this my chance to politely decline?
You may.
Well, what if somebody
seconds
seconds that? What if somebody seconds that before you decline, Emily?
Okay.
I would, I don't know, is a second required?
Yes.
So I would second that, but I understand if Emily is too busy and so forth, then certainly there's no pressure to accept. But I would second Daryl's nomination.
So do you accept, Emily?
I very much appreciate the nomination, but I need to decline it this time.
I understand. We're all pretty busy. So, any other nominations? So,
Daryl, is it a very high stress chairing position?
no, it's actually enjoyable. And there's, it's such a high functioning committee and, such a knowledgeable group. It's not a big time commitment. Any volunteers? Anybody want to nominate themselves? Okay, I will nominate myself. And if elected, I'm going to see if Lindsay is interested, and then I'll resign and we can elect her.
Sounds good.
Hi, everybody. This is Lindsay.
Oh, good, Lindsay. I'm glad you're here.
Sorry to join late. I am
We want-
gathering. Folks are talking about the chair.
We want to nominate you for chair.
Oh, dear. I just caught that Emily declined. And Daryl, you've done such a great job for a long time. So I will accept it begrudgingly, but I'll do it because I know someone needs to do it.
Awesome. Can we get a second? I'll nominate Lindsay. Can we get a second?
I'll second Lindsay. Diana.
Awesome.
Diana, you should do it.
Awesome. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All those in favor of Lindsay for chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, Lindsay. You are now the chair, so you can take over the meeting.
Oh, goodness.
This is what
Wow.
happens
Well,
when you're late.
I know. I wasn't quite ready. I might presently be walking in the neighborhood towards my home, so I'm not looking at the agenda. And I
Okay.
might lean on Chelsea to maybe help me out.
No problem. Next, we are electing the vice chair so that you have somebody as backup, Lindsay.
Oh, love it.
Who's our current vice chair?
I believe CB Brady, and so that brings us back around to the rest of the roll call. We are missing CB and Katie Severin and Monica Ratliff. I apologize for not having that right at hand when we got started here.
So, any nominations for vice chair?
This is Diana. I'll vice chair with Lindsay.
Awesome.
I
So
love it.
I'll second that nomination.
Great. Any other nominations? No, we love Diana. All right. All in favor? I guess we do the voice vote.
Yeah.
Say aye if you're in favor.
I
Aye.
Aye.
am now going to
Perfect.
silence my mic and Chair Lindsay can take over.
Thank you. I will also give a disclaimer that because I am working home, my cell phone is not fully charged. So this will not set the precedent for my chairmanship, but a little bit stretched today. Okay, so
And that's why you have Diana,
chair.
Lindsay. You can pass it over to Diana at any
Yes.
point.
Perfect. Teamwork. Okay, great. Well, we now are going on to action item 5B. So the Seward to Glen connection cell study comments. And can I turn it over to Emily to maybe introduce that?
Sure. Yeah, so we had talked, I think last time, or maybe by email, or maybe both, about, oh, right, because we had our special meeting on the Pell, and we had talked about drafting committee comments for our consideration to forward to the project team. So Lindsay and I put some stuff together. I think that also went out on the agenda, so hopefully folks have had a chance to look at it. Yeah, what else to say? Did anybody have questions or thoughts or things that are not covered there, or maybe like big picture stuff to begin with?
All right, I see Mike. Go ahead, ask your question or comment.
Yeah, I was going to ask, has there been any analysis of where there have been accidents within that corridor? So, I mean, we see volumes, but it would be nice to know where the problems have occurred historically. Do we have any way to look at that in light of the volume data to kind of get a sense of where we might make suggestions for dealing with that, or is there no data for that?
I think they do have those data in the, probably in the system performance report.
Yes, I will jump in, but I think perhaps Galen or someone with the project team might be on. Part of our comment, there's a pedestrian and bicycle study, and within that study, it does count for pedestrians and bicyclists, which is the first study of its kind for Anchorage. And within it, it includes a section about intersections where there's high exposure as a pedestrian, where I was just talking to the project team about how we could overlay that onto current or past data on crashes so that we could see if those exposure areas from the report align. So if Galen is there, that might be a good way to just weigh in on that.
I am here. Thanks, Lindsay. So this is Galen Jones with Alaska DOT, and I'm looking right now to see the extent of what was the question? I think I might have missed the start of it, but was the question about if we have existing conditions crash data within the study area? Am I interpreting that correctly?
That's correct. Yeah. So just right to Lindsay's point of exposure is one thing, but if we have the crash data, if we could see that, I think that would help us to see that exposure is an accurate reflection of where the crash risks are, right?
Yeah, and so I'll have to look through these reports. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer right now, but I'll have to look and see if there is some sort of a crash map. I believe there is, and I think Lindsay was right. I think it's in the system performance memorandum, which is available on the project website in the documents, or I'm sorry, the project library tab. So sewardglenconnection.com. And so I'm going to look in that real quick, and but I don't want to make anybody wait while I look for that.
Galen, this is John McPherson. You're correct. It's in the system performance memo.
Oh, good, John. Thank you.
Great. And I'll look there too and just get a sense of that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments on this proposed comment?
I just
Lindsay,
want to
this is
say
Mark
that,
Geiser,
I
the
mean, it was,
Anchorage area planner. I just
Sorry, I heard Diana first. Go ahead, Diana.
hi, I just thought that the workshop, I missed the second meeting that you all had on it, but the original workshop, I just thought was great with the presentation at the beginning, and it was a wonderful turnout for it. And it just, I don't know, it just had a lot of opportunity to see the different proposals that were put together. And then I really appreciated Lindsay actually with NeighborWorks, you know, getting the Anchorage Museum and the Design Week and all the different reflections that landscape architects and others, you know, took the time to think about this for our community and think about all these different options. So anyway, I just wanted to say that it was really wonderful to see it through different people's eyes through that process. So thank you, Lindsay, and everybody who was working on that. Even though it's still difficult.
Yeah, thank you. And then I didn't see who else wanted to share a comment or question.
Oh, this is Mark Geiser, the Anchorage area planner for DOT. I dropped the Seward to Glen Pell website link in the chat, and that should take you to. I think I put the link for the document, so everybody can find those pretty easy.
Great, thank you.
This is Galen Jones with Alaska DOT, and I
find that crash information
on the website and on that page, so I can share what page it is to if anybody's interested in that information. Just assuming anybody is, it's page 67 of the document. It shows a diagram with crash information. So just wanted to follow up with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so the order of operations. We've had this comment introduced. Does it need a second or anything before we vote?
I think you do need a motion and a second, Lindsay.
Okay.
And perhaps a clear call for public comment before that.
Okay, perfect. Comment before a motion?
So you had a committee discussion and then open to public comments and then the motion and the action.
Okay, great. Let's open it up for public comment. And like I said, my battery is low, so I apologize if I disappear. Any public comments?
Not seeing any.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to do this resolution, or excuse me, these comments.
This is Emily. I'll move to approve.
Great, do we have
This
a
is
second?
Diana, I'll second it.
All right. Is the best way to do all in favor and vote aye, or should I ask if there's opposition to adopting it?
I think maybe the easiest would just say anyone opposed, and then you can adopt by unanimous consent.
Okay.
I don't think
Is there anyone
Aaron, we don't need a
opposed?
roll call vote on this, do we?
No, you only need a roll call vote if there is objection. So typically you just ask if there's any objection, and if there's not, you assume that it's okay and it's passed, and you just note that there was no objection.
Great.
Great, thank you. Is there any objection? All right. Sounds like we have adopted this with unanimous consent. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Emily, for taking the lead on this. Okay.
Thank you
so
for
our
all your
next
work on it,
action-
Lindsay.
Thanks. All right, so our next action item is the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 2. Who shall take the lead on this?
Well, I'll give just a brief intro, but Erin is really the lead on this. A few links were sent out to the committee about the public comment period for the TIP Amendment 2. And so just wanted to provide space in case the committee wanted to provide comments. You don't have to, but it is open for public comment through March 15th, I believe. So you can also give comment individually if you are so inclined, of course. But yeah, just wanted to provide space for that. You don't have to take action on it, but it is there. There are a lot of changes. I think it was as we were looking through the minutes from our December meeting, there are 7 pages of changes in the 7-page memo. So there is a lot going on, a lot of which is based on our federal certification review with FHWA that happened last spring. And I better stop there and pass it over to Aaron in case he wants to say anything else before I say the wrong thing.
No, you're good. That's really all there is to talk about. A lot of the changes are just stuff we have to make, like adding local match or showing that there's the local match for all the projects. That takes up a pretty significant amount of the changes we have in here. So yeah, I'm here to help answer any questions that you all have on it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does the BPAC members have any comments or questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. Are there any comments from the public?
I don't see any, Lindsay.
Okay, great.
Sorry, that's my dog.
That's okay. Someone just laughed at me because I'm walking my bike and they're like, you're supposed to ride that. Don't worry about it. Okay, so on to our next agenda item. Can you switch over to the agenda, please? All right. Ooh, 2024 Parks and Recreation Bond. We have someone taking the lead on this.
This was a request from Diana Rhodes, so I will pass it over to her.
Thank you. Yes, we have a $4.35 million bond this year that leverages or unlocks $16 million, mostly in federal transportation dollars. We have the 2 AMATS, big AMATS projects on the park bond. I don't know if everybody has seen the park bond projects. We have it on our website. We have it on the City Parks and Rec website, but we do have the huge connecting the Ship Creek Trail to the Coastal Trail. And so that $1.5 million that voters are asked to spend on this will unlock $14 million in the federal transportation dollars. And then the Fish Creek Trail to the Coastal Trail is a $50,000 bond from voters that unlocks $400,000 for this next phase of the Fish Creek Trail to the Ocean project. And then there's a $600,000 item, the Russian Jack Springs Park safety and ADA improvements. And that one unlocks $621,000 in federal land and water conservation fund. So overall, this 4.35 million park bond will, it says here that it's 4.85 on here, but it actually, there was some portion of it that went over to, this is funny.
I
Anyway,
might have an old version, Diana. I was just
yeah,
found
anyway,
the
that's all right, because like
easiest
there
link
was
to find.
100,000 that went over to the cemetery bond. So anyway, it is a 4.35 million bond because 100,000 went over to the cemetery bond. All these projects, East Chester Park, it's in its last master plan. And so anyway, there's amazing projects, the Mountain View Parks improvements and safety enhancements, Mulcahy Stadium, all-inclusive playground equipment. I mean, I work at Anchorage Park Foundation and we advocate for these projects all year long. They go through a process with community councils weighing in. And then the Parks and Rec Department solicits, recommendations from the community, and then they prepare a list that goes to the mayor's office, and then the mayor's office presents it. He presented a much smaller park bond this year, but then assembly members did rally and add a few more projects back into it. We usually have about a $3.9 million bond, and this year it's 4.3 million, which I think is fantastic, to leverage this $16 million in federal transportation dollars and land and water conservation fund. So I would love if we could make a motion and approve this through the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And I'd be happy to move it if I could.
This is Matt. I move in favor of a motion to approve this park bond document.
Wait,
this
you
is
need to
Mike.
do,
I'll
sorry,
second.
stop.
Oh.
You need to do public comments before you do
Oh.
any motion.
Are we supposed to do committee comments first? I just have a question.
Yep.
Yeah,
Looks like we
so-
lost Lindsay, so go for it, Emily.
Okay. So this is Emily. I guess I was wondering, is this for our approval or are we entertaining a motion to support it or pass something and
Support it.
Part of it?
Just
Okay.
support it. That's all. As a group, you support yes on Prop 4.
Any other committee comments? Any
Yeah,
comment?
this is Matt again.
Yep.
So I guess I'm not sure if this comment is appropriate at this time or not, but it seems to me that this idea that voting in favor of these bonds unlock many additional federal funds, it's like free money in a matter of speaking. I know it's not really free, but is it appropriate to say, it sounds like a good deal to me. It sounds like a great benefit to our communities. And I would urge that we vote in favor of approving this initiative.
Thanks, Matt. And so then we'll open it up to any other committee comments? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, and then Matt, I think if you're still interested in making the motion, it can come back to you for the motion. And then once we get through this item, I'll pass it over to Diana to chair. But since it's her item, I'm happy to help step in here.
Okay, sure. So I move that we move forward with this procedure on this document.
So you move to support the park bond as a BPAC?
Yes, please.
Great,
And this is Mike. I'll second that.
great. Anyone opposed? Okay, awesome. Let me switch us over to the agenda, and Diana, would you like to take over chairing?
Okay, next up, we have the 2022 annual traffic report from the traffic department.
Yep, and we've got Zach Hartman here with us. Thanks, Zach. Take it away.
Thank you. Happy to be joining you all. I shared, this is Zach Hartman with the Municipality of Anchorage Traffic Engineering Department. I'm the traffic calming, bicycle, and pedestrian coordinator. I'm going to give a quick few minutes going through the 2022 annual traffic report. I'm far from an expert on this traffic report. We have a very talented data division in our department, but I just wanted to kind of make sure you all know about it, know where to find it, and highlight some of the key details from maybe the pedestrian and bicycle perspective. First, I'm going to start with why it's so old. That's a question we often get. It's the 2022 traffic report. And one of the answers is because there is a delay to when police reports come and are made available to the department. And also, once those police departments are in our department's hands, they review how the officer filled out that crash report and kind of analyze it and maybe have to do some tweaks. It's natural for the officers to make mistakes when they're on the scene of an accident. So they'll comb through it a little bit and refine the data before it ends up in our crash report system. And lastly, one of the reasons is our data staff is very busy collecting all of our own data throughout the summer. So a lot of the information you see in the report as well, they're out there all throughout the summer collecting data themselves. All that stuff ends up in the report. So typically it comes out in the fall time from the previous year. So it's about 9 months behind typically. This slide, I just want to point out how you can find it. I will self-admit, I look at this report probably, maybe not weekly, but almost weekly. And the way I go to it, I don't have it bookmarked. I just start Googling the phrase that you might naturally Google. So you can find it that way. That's how I always find it. So you don't have to save these links or anything. If you think of this 3 months from now, please just type out a phrase and I promise you it'll show up in the top 3 links. And yeah, it's a PDF on the municipal website. It's about 100 pages, but it's a little intimidating, but it's broken up into these 7 chapters you see here. The first chapter is just general information, kind of has a highlight of the different groups in the engineering department, traffic engineering department. But mainly it's cool. This chapter is cool because it shows you some of the devices that that data team actually uses to collect stuff. Some of you might be familiar. I don't know if you can see my pointer on the screen, but this little like bollard with the black and yellow stripes that you see around the trail system, Moose Loop, that's not just for decoration. That has like little lasers in it, and that is counting folks as they go by. So you can check out that chapter and kind of recognize some of the stuff you see out there in the wild. Chapter 3 on traffic devices has highlights on the different type of traffic control devices we have in Anchorage. So 168 all-way stops, 15 roundabouts, 283 traffic signals, over 300 traffic calming devices. All that information is either laid out graphically, like you see here with the stop signs, or just in tables with like the intersection locations or however. Chapter 4 is kind of what I would say the meat of the report, at least for how I use it. That's the crash analysis. So that has all the crash data and then the injury outcomes. So for 2022, from the previous year of 2021, we did stay flat on the amount of fatalities in Anchorage, 22 deaths in both 2021 and 2022. Generally, when you dig into the data, Anchorage is a lot safer than the US in terms of crash rates, like fatality rates. If you're in a car, it's about on par in terms of fatality rates if you're on a bike, but we're really, really struggling with pedestrian deaths in Anchorage. We far exceed the national average in terms of pedestrian death rates. So lots and lots of work ahead from us. But this crash analysis chapter cuts out data in a lot of different ways. They do lots of great stuff to look at the data in different perspectives. This chart here on the top left shows temperature. So this colorful line, that's like the temperature throughout the year. If you look into it closer, there's white dots that represent snowfall, and that black squiggly line is crashes. So yeah, there's dozens of pages where they're looking at data from different perspectives. I really encourage you to check that chapter out. Chapter 5 is traffic volume, so actually counting cars and pedestrians throughout the city. I added a bunch more QR codes here for the very interested. There's the traffic.muni.org in the middle, which is where our data department hosts all of the volume data. Anyone can go there at any time and see how many cars are driving down a given road. Lots of different ways you can search up data. So traffic.muni.org is a good way to pull up all of this data as well, if you want more than just a PDF. And then DOT has their own resource as well. That's in the bottom right. But this slide on the left here, our data team does an excellent job at collecting non-motorized data throughout Anchorage, in my opinion. And then this chart on the left is the monthly volumes on the coastal trail. Lots and lots of folks on the coastal trail. See what those numbers are. Yeah, over 35,000 bikes a month and over 30,000 pedestrians a month near Lineary Park in June. So definitely popular. Chapter 6, roadway information. So this gets into like speed limit data. If you're wondering like what the system-wide speed limits look like, this is where you can go. Different colors represent different speed limits. And this chapter also has all of the speed studies that the data crews performed over that year. So they'll actually put out the measuring devices and list out what recorded speeds they had. And lastly, listed information. So this is listing out types of crashes by intersection. So you can look at any given intersection and see what types of crashes based on the crash outcomes that intersection had. So that was a quick run through of, you know, what you can find in that annual traffic report. Again, I encourage you, I'll go back to this slide. You can just Google MOA traffic report and you should be able to find it right there at the top, or muni.org/departments/traffic. I encourage you all to check it out and see what that report has. That's all I had on the data report. I can answer some questions, but if they're too technical, I'll probably have to defer. Like I said, the data team in our department does a really good job with this, and they're the experts.
Thanks, Zach. Diana, you're our de facto chair right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to the next item on the agenda. Unless there are any questions, anything else that we have for Zach?
We're going to get Zach for a little while here, so we're
Excellent.
back to Zach for the next item.
Yeah, you're gonna have to bear with me for a few presentations. Yeah, so I kind of got 3 different things here on the agenda, so I'm more than happy to bounce back and forth between topics if something in these other kind of discussion areas brings up a question for you. But for now, I'll start talking about the pilot protected bike lane project. I was with you all in, I think it was December or early January, and I talked a little bit about how the Pine Street pilot went this last fall and gave a very early sneak peek of what we were hoping to do in 2024, this upcoming summer. This was kind of the slide I showed you, indicating, oh, we're hoping to do it downtown. We're looking at a 2-way bike lane and maybe using some different technology like bike signals and maybe some different protection materials. And I think that our project team has done a pretty good job of hitting those marks. So in terms of the location, we did land on downtown on 8th Street and 6th Ave. Put a lot of work in to bring the DOT and the city together. Sat down with the municipal manager, Kent Colhase, and the director of DOT Central Region, Sean Holland, new to the position, and discussed this all out and had those executives kind of have some questions answered, and they signed on the dotted line, forming this agreement between the municipality and the Department of Transportation. So we are doing it downtown, pretty excited about that. We also are doing it for a longer duration. Last year, we only did, it was just September, a little less than a month. As you are all used to, delivery timelines really got us last year, but this summer, we're anticipating a mid to late May install. Weather is always a concern for construction projects, so hesitant to give out an exact date, but mid to late May. And then we'll be pulling out the flex posts and other devices in mid-September before we get our first freeze. Two-way bike lane was feedback we got from a lot of folks during the first phase. People that love bike lanes, people that don't love bike lanes, maintenance staff, other municipal staff. So we figured, the point of a pilot is to try stuff. So we're trying a two-way bike lane. So in that graphic on the bottom right here, you can see right now, as you drive it today, there are 3 lanes on both 6th Ave and A Street. And this project will be temporarily converting the leftmost lane into a two-way bicycle facility. So using that 12 plus feet for two-way bike lane. We are using bike signals, so we already have our ordered place, and we're going to be putting up, instead of just a big green ball signal, it'll have a little green bike logo, and that at all those intersections along 6th and A Street downtown, that'll be directing bike traffic along this two-way facility. And different protection materials, this is ongoing, literally day by day. We're looking at the money we have left in the project, as well as the timeline to get, concrete materials. I'll say it's looking less likely that we'll be able to use concrete products in this pilot, but we are trying other types of, bike lane materials. So we're not just using the exact same type of flex post, trying to capitalize on the opportunity we have with this pilot project and try things out, see what works, see what we like, and see what we don't like. So that is a little bit more information on where we're headed this summer as things are crystallizing, as we're moving through the design process. The most important thing I want to plug you all into right now is the website, which is newly live. We're adding information as we go. Our project team has been great. Huddle's been great in getting this live. So I encourage you all to go to anchoragepbl.com. Keep going to that website to learn more about the project, and while the pilot's going on, to leave feedback and hear about upcoming events. We have this little GIS map on the left that we're inviting folks to reach out to. Business owners, if they have bike parking and they want to let people know, hey, you can come downtown and go to my business where I have a bike rack. Trying to get people involved and get people using the facility and make it visible. And especially in the downtown context, we want businesses to see how, bicycling facilities like this can really support the business case as well. So I will wrap up with that. Well, I'll hopefully you can see this video going. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask or go to the website and submit your question or comment in the form, and the project team will get back to you that way. If you guys are seeing this video, this is something that the DOT Aviation Design Group, the aviation engineers, have their fancy drones that they decided to break out and do a little filming on Pine Street. So a little bit of look back at what it looked like when there wasn't snow on the ground. Yeah.
Looks great.
Yeah, so I've also had some questions, not from any committee members, about more data. I highlighted some speed data last time I talked with you all in December, but our project team has not dug into like all the camera footage we collected on Pine Street here. We have like lots and lots of footage, but we have yet to either process that manually or send it off to technology companies that can use like AI or whatever to do it. We've been pretty focused on pulling off the 2024 pilot, so we don't quite yet have new data to highlight how many folks use it on Pine Street. But anyone that did use it, I don't know, anecdotally, at least I found that lots of folks used it. But yeah, excited about 2024 and hope you all stay tuned in. I'm sure I'll be back at some point this committee to share some more information. And I will skip right to yet another slide deck with hopefully some good pictures. Dan, are you okay if I move on to discussing my time in Finland at the
Yes,
Cycling
please.
Urbanism Masterclass? Cool. Again, thank you for bearing with me and my rambling on. So, yeah, I recently got back along with several other members of the kind of local transportation industry, I'll say. Brandon Telford, who works for the municipality, he's acting as the municipal engineer. So he's like signature authority on any design variances and things like that, as well as Alex Reed and Noah King, who are both DOT project managers. Alex Reed's, I am sure he's been in this committee before. He's managing the Spinard Road project and the Fireweed Lane project. So he was with us. Noah King is the manager for the Fish Creek Connection project to the Coastal Trail. So they kind of manage more of the complete streets, non-motorized focused projects. So it was great to have them there and seeing all this stuff with us, as well as Assembly Member Zalatel. She caught wind of this exciting opportunity and joined us there. So it was, you know, most of the class was Anchorage folks. So we definitely got the opportunity to get like the Anchorage context on things, and we could ask very Anchorage specific questions. So I felt like we got a little bit of special treatment, which was nice. But a big thank you to AMATS, who provided the training funding to get us there and get us in the Cycling Urbanism Masterclass. It was great to speak with all these transportation professionals in Helsinki and learn all the lessons they had to share. So we started out in Helsinki, and we got there, and there's plenty of differences. I'll just say I tried to keep an open mind and not try and, you know, find the differences between Finland and Alaska and then discount all their good ideas because of that. But I will point out some comparisons just so we have a little bit of context for this conversation. These two images of the cities are to scale. They are similar in that, you know, they're northern places. Anchorage and Helsinki are both the urban centers located on the southern extent of their respective land masses and are on a body of water. But generally, you can kind of see from the numbers here and the sizes, Helsinki is anywhere from 2 to 3 times as populated as Anchorage. They're not contending with mountains in the Chugach State Park. A lot more of that area you can see on the left in the light orange and the pink is, you know, relatively buildable, and, you know, the pink is still kind of sprawled, but Helsinki is definitely a little bit bigger. And their weather, I'm sure we're all wondering, you know, does it really apply to Anchorage if they get less snow? They do get a little bit less snow, and it is a little bit warmer, but they still get very, very real winters, and they have to contend with this stuff through all those winter months, undoubtedly. Yeah, so this is kind of on the left is the 5 key points that they shared with us. This is kind of like what drives their development of their bicycling facilities. Number 1 is direct and efficient routes with a clear emphasis on separation between pedestrians and cyclists, including through intersections. Intersections has a specific point of emphasis there as well. And number 2 is all of that has to be maintained. Building it doesn't really mean much if it's not usable through the winter or even through the summer months. So maintaining that stuff is very important. And then number 3, accommodating people through construction. They did a really good job of this. This is one of the first things I noticed when I was walking from the train station to my hotel. They had construction ongoing, but it was very clear where you were and weren't allowed to go. The detours functioned really well, and it felt comfortable and safe to be around active construction as a pedestrian on a busy street. Number 4, bike parking. Generally, I don't feel like Anchorage from the city side is like emphasizing itself a lot of bike parking. It's mostly kind of just been left up to the businesses and say, hey, you can have like a loose bike rack out front if you want. But Helsinki says bike parking is important, and it makes sense, right? And that was obvious in the city. They had, as many parking meters as downtown Anchorage has. They had bike racks, so it was really nice. And then lastly, marketing and communications. They're proud of their bike network system. They want to see it grow, so they're telling about it and emphasizing it. And on the right is an image that represents an ethos that they kind of put in stone in their city plan in 2016, the kind of equivalent of their comprehensive plan. The top priority is pedestrians for them. Any kind of design question that comes up, you can default back to this ethos as pedestrians are the priority. And then behind that is cyclists. Third is public transport. Fourth is cargo, like moving goods. And then lastly is folks in private vehicles. So that, that is their priority system that they have like in their biggest main plan. And then a quote at the bottom, transit is the backbone of the city in which bicycling thrives. That really connected with me, and Helsinki's public transport system was spectacular. It really kind of, you can do so much more on a bike when you can also fall back or complement on a good public transport system. This set of tables and charts here is from their like bike plan. I don't know the exact title, but I like it because if you look at the left, text is a little bit small here, but in 2010 and 2011, they were spending €4 million total on any like active transportation facilities total. So for a city of Helsinki's size and age, that's, in my opinion, a pretty small number. But they have these political decisions in the top row that started to build their bicycling highway network plan, action plan, mobility development plan, and so on and so on, carbon neutral plan. These things started to build on each other as political decisions, and then the funding followed it. So they separated out their bicycle specific funding in 2012, and that funding grew and grew and grew up to 19.5 million in the year 2020. And their city bike engineer said it's up to about 25 million euros now. So the political decisions as well as the funding to build upon that. And up at the top, you can kind of see where their cycling mode share is at now. In yellow is the line. So they're between 9 and 10%. This is updated 2019. They're doing a little bit better recently. COVID obviously kind of turned a lot of these things upside down. One other thing to highlight is at the bottom, again, they're tracking the amount of bike parking. That's a core part of their system, so they track it in their bike plan. And then as well as subjective, satisfaction, resident satisfaction. How much do they like cycling in the city? Ultimately, the residents are like the end user, so tracking how well it's working for them, makes sense to have it as a metric. So here I kind of touched on funding, and they spend a lot of money. 25 million euros is not a small amount, but I don't think in the Anchorage area it's necessarily a lack of funding. AMATS and the city and the DOT as well, there are lots of money going towards these projects. I don't see it necessarily as money as the single thing that's holding Anchorage back. Just wanted to mention that. Here, I mentioned their carbon neutral plan. They had a goal of 20% bike mode share by 2035. Their carbon neutral plan said move that up. They moved that 20% bike mode share goal up until 2030. So this red line is the trend that they have to get on to achieve their goals. And that is not some goal that doesn't mean anything. It's some forgotten plan. It's taken very seriously, and it's definitely causing stress. They're working hard to get there. Mode share, this is a chart of mode shares throughout Finland. They have a really comprehensive survey they do of Finnish travel every 6 years. This is a little older. I think this was their 2017 one, so this isn't the freshest data. That should be coming out soon. But here you can see Helsinki, and I mentioned their public transport, and that's this light blue area. And you can see it is way outshining all of the rest of Finland, double the nearest competitor in terms of transit mode share. And then walking, also, they're right at the top. Helsinki's right up there with Tampere. which makes sense. Those are the two kind of big population centers. So walking's common there. Oulu, which is where we spent the second half of our trip, I'll highlight it here. This is Oulu. They call themselves the winter cycling capital of the world. And you can see some of that cycling reflected here in the numbers. 16% bike mode share is kind of beating out the rest of their Finnish peers. For comparison's sake, I mapped on Anchorage's numbers to this chart. And I'll want to just mention that the driving alone in a car numbers are not that much different than Finland. It's the, riding in a car as a passenger that apparently Anchorage has a lot more of. I don't know how this has been explained, or how to explain this, whether it's, the data source or how these trips fall out, but this is how Anchorage stacks up. So interesting to see. Something also worth mentioning is that I was shocked, and I think a lot of the other Anchorage attendees were shocked by the median bike trip distance in Finland. It was incredibly short. It was like 2.5 kilometers or 3 kilometers. So people were just on their bike for a few minutes for the typical bike trip in these places. And this chart does a really good job of highlighting that. So the trip lengths that are most common for a bike in Finland are this 1 to 2 kilometers or 2 to 3 kilometers. That's where this bike mode share is the highest. Beyond 3 kilometers, they start switching into public transport as the way to make those slightly longer trips. All the way up to 10 kilometers, 7 to 10 kilometers is where public transport sees the highest proportional use. And then longer than 10 kilometers or 7-ish miles, folks are driving a car. So to me, this looked like pretty sane and normal and unsurprising. My commute is like right here in this 10-kilometer range. So even in Finland, you wouldn't expect to see a ton of people on a bike on the same commute. They'd be able to switch into public transport more reliably. So I thought that was interesting. So to kind of highlighted it on the left here is like what the Finnish mode share would be in a given travel radius kind of mapped onto Anchorage. So you can see how that actually works. So for a 0.6 mile travel radius, most Finns would be walking. And I think this checks out in downtown Anchorage. Most folks would be walking. When the range gets into kind of getting out past South Edition into Midtown and encompassing all of Fairview here, you see about 25% of people are in a bus or on public transport or biking. 30% are walking, but even then, a lot of people are driving or a passenger in a car. You start to expand out to about 4.5 miles, and the biking starts going away, the walking starts going away. Lots of people on transport, but the cars start to really kick in here. And then, yeah, when they start to cover more of Anchorage, you can see how even if a Finn were transported to Anchorage, the private car really starts to dominate and the public transport shines in this range. So the takeaway for me, at least, is that biking for all your trips, absolutely everywhere, all the time, is going to be a tough sell. But in the places and situations where that mode choice could make sense, the infrastructure and maintenance needs to be there to support that mode shift. So getting into a little of the pictures, on the right is what their bicycling network looks like. This is their BANA or bicycling superhighway. And on the left, you can see an image of the network that they're starting to build out of these bicycling superhighways. This is a picture of what some of their infrastructure looks like today during winter. Helsinki officials, this is from Oskari, their kind of city bike engineer, admitted that they're far from perfect. They struggle with a lot of the same things we struggle with, berms of snow after the first path, but they're doing a lot to try and achieve that mode share I mentioned earlier and improve their infrastructure to get there. So this is an example of a Finnish national highway, a 4-lane road with kind of like a dirt walking path on the side. That's it. Well, what they did is they improved it this last summer. They separated bicycles, pedestrians, cars. They added pedestrian bicycle level lighting and a connection over here off and to the left to local commercial space. So these are the type of projects they're doing to try and get that mode shift and improve their system. A lot of that bicycling superhighway network, what they're doing is they're just converting 8-foot shared use paths into the big bicycle superhighways that I showed you earlier. So this used to be an 8-foot shared use path, and they just basically supersized it. So that's a lot of what they're doing. I don't know how this video will translate, but we'll try and play it. If the video is running, you can see we had a light dusting of snow overnight when we were there. So the contractor just went through with a little brush attachment on their trackless plow and blew all that away. But it should look like similar equipment. You know, the little pathway plow has a different attachment, looks similar. And then the grader in the top left as well. You know, this is stuff we're used to seeing in our neighborhoods. So kind of common equipment. On the right, you see their contractor there out, you know, showing a dedication to their winter maintenance, hand shoveling their stairwell and sweeping off the little ramps on the stairwell so people can stroller up their little kiddos around the city. Bike signals, this was super interesting to me. I'll try and play this video here in the middle. Pay attention to when the different lights turn green. You'll be able to see the pedestrian turns first, and then the bike signal will come second. And lastly, the vehicle signal goes third. So leading pedestrian and leading bicycle signal everywhere. I'd love to see that. And I liked seeing, you know, which kind of like bicycle signal infrastructure they ended up with. So maybe I don't have to learn their hard lessons. Bike parking, I mentioned this earlier. It was everywhere throughout the city. The good examples and the bad examples. You know, it's a universal snow truth. If there's nowhere good to put the snow, it's going to end up looking like this, where it's just ice chunks on a bike rack, probably damaging people's bikes. Not fun. Protected bike lanes. You know, I mentioned our little pilot project earlier, but we saw a pretty distinct lack of like a traditional or maybe, you know, like US context of protected bike lanes. Here are examples that I did see of this one that has the little steel bollards. And on the right, this is a parking protected bike lane where there's parking in between the traveled lane and the bike lane. They have an excellent bike share system that I was bummed I didn't get to try because it's summer only. It's also like traditional bike only or acoustic bike only. They're looking to expand that system to have both e-bikes and traditional bikes and do it year round. And I'll point out the price. Whole summer, 35 euros. That's incredible. Okay, moving on to Finland. I'll try and pick up the pace a little bit as well. Priorities I put in quotes here because I think Oulu, Finland really shined on kind of showing that culture of pedestrians and bicyclists being the #1 priority. A lot of things that seem like hard decisions, be them policy, engineering, whatever it is, to them it just seems a little bit easier because it's so obvious that we are prioritizing these certain modes. Again, a little slide of comparison. These are 2 scale images of each other. Oulu has about 30% less population, but honestly, they're kind of similar in Anchorage. They have a huge like political boundary, but they don't use most of it. This slide coming up here shows like kind of the urban core, I'll call it. These are also scale images of each other. So Oulu is maybe a little bit more dense in its like core area, but then it gets kind of like suburban sprawl a little bit quicker than Anchorage does. Really spreads out pretty quick. And then the weather again. This is the same slide from earlier. They're similar in temperature, colder at different parts of the winter than us, and a little bit less snow. And my caveat has been that they get less snow than a typical Anchorage year. They have much less snow than we do this year. This is what their bicycling superhighway network, or BANA, looks like. It's pretty wide and very comfortable to ride on. I showcased the widths here. So again, they just convert these 8-foot shared use paths into this BANA network. 8 foot for pedestrians, and then a total of 12 feet for the bikes, so 20 feet wide total. And here's kind of an image of what they've been building, what they're planning to build, and kind of what that network looks like in their urban center. So in the last handful of summers, they've built out 14 kilometers. You can see here on the right how they've been building that out. And they want to double that number over the next 3 years. And we saw a lot of that construction kind of either staged or ongoing when we were there. This next slide highlights an example of a tunnel. They have so many underpasses and tunnels. Pretty rare. I mean, it was only a handful of times in all the biking we did. We were in Oulu that we had to go through like an intersection. It was not that many of them because they have over 300 some odd underpasses. They view that as a core point of their system. You know, little kids much prefer going over a comfortable and well-lit underpass like this than going through a signal. And their kind of 3 points, Helsinki had their 5 points. Their 3 that they shared with us is the system has to be fast, easy, and comfortable. But like Helsinki, they emphasized you can design it and build it that way, but it doesn't matter if it's not maintained. So kind of the translation is the 3 points of ethos of their bike system there is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. And, you know, they talked a ton about maintenance to us and shared lots of great information. They had these kind of 11 key points they walked us through of their maintenance system. They have, so they do a lot of private contract work. In the top left, you can see the 10 like general area winter maintenance contracts they have where they plow everything, roads, sidewalks, everything, one contractor for like an area or a neighborhood. But where they shine is this bicycle superhighway contract. That contract ignores political boundaries, neighborhood boundaries, and it's dedicated where one private contractor only does the bicycling superhighway network. 145 kilometers. They have 6 pieces of equipment going, and that's all they do, and that's all they care about. One cool thing they do, the picture on the bottom left here, is in that contract, they require the contractor to ride the route that they maintain. So if you plow this certain route, at one point in the winter, you have to get on a bike and ride it and see how it feels. Contractors apparently actually enjoy that. You know, it's a point of pride for them. This chart is here to highlight the strict quality standards they have. 2 centimeters means a plow needs to be out on that bicycling network with a blade on the ground, moving, clearing snow. 4 centimeters of snow, like under 2 inches of snow, that's like worst case scenario. So you can imagine how nice it would be at the end of a day of work when it's snowing hard to be able to expect like an inch or less of snow on your commute home. They have strict quality control conditions up and down their contract, even down to like the type of gravel they can put on the bike track. So that's not too sharp, so that it doesn't pop your tires. Like very strict control on quality on all this stuff. And they use technology to help them with that. The technology also helps, you know, these beautiful bike counters with public messaging systems. You can see over here on the right, they have weather stations. You can see that data on their little GIS map they have. Camera view of the bicycling path, as well as this is a set of lasers that are aimed down at the pathway. And what those do, you can see the little laser here in the center of the screen that measures the thickness of snow. So the contractor can know, and the public can know exactly how much snow is out there. And you can see the quality of path they get. This image here on the left kind of shows the quality. Super stable to bike on. We biked a bunch when we were out there, and we were just kind of on like sit up like touring bikes with like narrow gravel bike width tires, no studs. We saw like a couple fat bikes the whole time we were there because you don't need them. Just ride your regular bike. You kind of looked a little goofy if you rode anything else because it was just so easy. It was so easy to do without a second thought. A few other closing points here. Cycling paths and their illumination is a big part of their network. You can see here how it looks at night. This is kind of like the fall season when it gets a little bit darker. And in the winter, in terms of lighting, they have these little projectors. They're kind of well known for this. They kind of developed this technology themselves. kind of cool when all like the little markings on the bicycling superhighway network are covered up. You can still see where you belong as a pedestrian or a cyclist. This is what their bridges look like. We asked them as well about like the barriers and stuff like that. How do you handle that? And this is an example they pointed us to where they have a concrete barrier between the bike path and the car lanes. And they didn't really love it. Their maintenance struggles with the same thing that, you know, Anchorage maintenance might struggle with. It's like, where do you put it? You kind of just like pile it on the barrier, and then it's tough to like scoop it up and haul it out. So they prefer stuff like this. It looks kind of like their separated bike path network, where you just pull it off to the side as far as you can and handle it that way. With you can have a big mound of snow storage in the middle, or you can just build an entirely separate bridge, which would be nice to do, but maybe isn't always possible. Yeah. One last point on wayfinding. All these superhighway networks were like numbered, much like our like vehicle highway route is numbered. And they had these signs throughout the city, so you can see like route number 9 and distances and everything like that. So I thought they had a pretty cool wayfinding network that was tied in with their transit network. Here are some of the city bike fleet. So the city of Oulu had their own fleet of e-bikes that we got to ride around. This cargo bike was really cool, very high-end cargo bike that they had. And it was very cold when we were there. We kept riding. A couple of the e-bikes from our Anchorage contingent like froze and the e-bike shut off. It was like -20 when we were there. Still lots of people riding around though. So they said they don't notice a dip in ridership until it gets below like -25 degrees Fahrenheit. And then people decide it's a little bit too cold. So yeah, in conclusion here, points 1 and 3 I really like. That's why I included this slide. They view winter maintenance as a customer service business. It's not a box they have to check. They drive the plow through once and then that's it. They want to deliver good quality service to their residents. And point number 3, they said there's a lot when we were talking about like cost of things. They called everything an investment, even maintenance, everything. If they're spending it on their bike network, they just called it an investment. It's a core value of their city and their residents. So all of that is good for the population. And yeah, that's what they want. So yeah, that's all I got. As you can tell, I could keep talking about everything in Finland a lot longer, but I'll leave it there. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk more about Finland offline too, I'm happy to. So thank you all for hearing me out. See if I can play this.
Great, thank you. And hi, everyone. I'm back. Sorry, I disappeared, but thank you for that presentation. Do any VPAC members have any questions or comments for Zach?
Hey, Zach, this is Emily. Thanks so much for that presentation. I was sad I didn't get to go, but it's great to almost feel like I was there. I was wondering if you had, like, what is the first thing that Anchorage could do? The first, the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit, and or the most impactful to improve our winter maintenance for bicycles and pedestrians?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And because we've been talking about this in different meetings, I've already had the folks in street maintenance have reached out and have wanted to hear like what we're doing or what we learned while we were there. So I was able to show like, or even share like the type of equipment that they were using. So I'm hopeful that might inform some capital decisions in the future. But stuff we can do today from a maintenance perspective. So one thing that was kind of maybe the biggest difference, and maybe this is a point in time, at this time in Anchorage, maybe the snow had slowed down a little bit, but the wind had picked up. There was a phase there where it was very, very windy, and the wind had blown lots of snow over the Anchorage network. And for me, at least, that is one of my least favorite times to bike. I'd rather have a big blizzard than a big snowdrift. That's brutal to bike through. So in Anchorage, like on the roads, maybe less so on the roads, but like in the neighborhoods and on the pathways, one single pass through is plowed. That is what plowed is. It went through once. Whereas with this kind of quality and customer focused system. It is the actual product that's out there. So I think the one thing that would be fantastic to do today is spend a few $1,000s on bikes for the city for maintenance and be able to get maintenance staff and design engineers and elected leaders, whoever wants to, on a bike and riding this stuff and feeling it. I don't know if others in this meeting feel the same way, but sometimes when you're talking about this stuff, when you're living with it, it kind of feels like you're just shouting into a void. But I think one thing that's really important for the quality they deliver is that the people that maintain it have to feel it and deal with it at least a little bit. And that's pretty important. So making folks ride in it, I guess, would be my easiest, lowest hanging fruit.
Great, thank you.
Well, any other questions or comments? That was a fun video too, while you were talking.
We did have Brandon Telford join us. I believe he is still on, and also went, oh, it looks like he might, oh yeah, no, he is on. Brandon, I don't know if you wanted to jump in and share anything as well. I don't know that we have time for a whole nother presentation, but yeah, I wanted to open it up for you too.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I guess I don't know that I really have anything to add, but I guess if there's more questions, I could kind of help answer.
Maybe Brendan, can you share your thoughts on one of those? What are some takeaways or the first low-hanging fruit actions that we can take based on your trip?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the takeaways, and we hear our local street maintenance talk about it, is just how critical separation is for providing that snow storage to make the maintenance easier on them and to help them provide a higher quality product. And that was really stressed in Oulu. Obviously, it's not something that can be achieved everywhere, and Helsinki certainly struggles with trying to provide any sort of separation for their facilities given how dense they are. But Oulu has lots of room available, and they take advantage of it by providing nice, healthy separation, which adds space for snow storage to exist, and then also adds quite a bit of comfort for the user. It's nice to be well separated from the motor vehicles. And then number two, to expand on Zach's points, getting a different standard other than just once we reach 4 inches of accumulated snow, we do a plow out, and every surface gets passed with a plow one time, and then we finish the plow out and we start hauling to get a different standard in place where the plows return, particularly at I guess they start sooner on the ped routes. So maybe the threshold for snow accumulation for a biker at ped route is 2 inches instead of 4 inches, or 1 inch instead of 4 inches. And then those routes are revisited periodically instead of just get one pass per plow out.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the BPAC, or if any members of the public? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks, Brendan, and thanks, Zach, for that presentation.
Thanks for having us.
Laser beams. Who knew? All right, I think we turn it over to Chelsea and Aaron for the AMATS planning projects update.
Sure do. Yep, I think you're with us from here on out. So a few brief updates. Try not to go too in depth, but as always, happy to answer questions. MTP, we are just waiting for it passed through the policy committee in February. So we are just waiting for signatures for our signature page from policy committee members, that perpetual DocuSign process. And then we will be sending it over to FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration for their approval as well before it is actually signed, sealed, and delivered. But it is complete, so that's really exciting. Rec Trails plan, we have kicked off with which is awesome. And see more and more of that as the project gets moving. So there should be information at the transportation fair, for example, on the Rec Trails plan. And excited to see that moving forward. Complete Streets, we are still in negotiation on that one. So that one is inching forward and making progress, but we're not quite ready to kick it off yet. Climate Action Plan, the RFP is out on the streets. We have our pre-bid question session tomorrow. If you know of anybody that's interested, please send them our way. I believe it's due like March 25th or something, the proposals. So towards the end of this month. And finally, I will pass it over to Aaron for the safety plan.
Yes, thank you. So real quick, we had the AMATS safety plan at the Technical Advisory Committee meeting last week. They recommended approval with only minor changes. So we will be posting it this week for final approval from the policy committee next week. And we're really excited. I do want to let you know that at the TAC, the municipal representatives on the TAC did mention that they are going to be seeking a Safe Street for All grant for one of the corridors that we have listed in our safety plan. So we're really excited to see that people are taking opportunity of those new grant opportunities and utilizing the plan that we've been working on. So thank you.
I think that's all from us, but happy to take any questions.
All right, I'm not seeing any or hearing any questions. Okay, let's move on to committee comments. Do any BPAC members have any comments they'd like to make? I just saw Emily. Yes, go for it.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to remind folks that the transportation fair is March 28th. I think it's 3 to 7 p.m. at the Alaska Airlines Center. And there's always lots of good information there and chances to interact with people in the transportation world. It's always jam-packed. Like, I'm always surprised how many people want to come out and talk about transportation. So hope to see you there. And then my other comment is just to thank Lindsay and Diana for stepping up to lead us this year. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will thrive under your leadership.
Thank you. Any other committee comments? I will put myself in the queue, and I want to thank Daryl. Daryl served as the BPAC chair ever since I've been involved, and I'm sure beyond that. And Daryl just has such a solid and kind approach to leadership. So I feel like we have some big shoes to fill and are going to work really hard to do that. And I'm really glad that you're still serving on the committee. I just spent a lot of time up and down Cordova, and I know that's one of your walking corridors. So think of you every time I go through there. So thank you, Daryl, for all your service and leading the BPAC.
Thank you, Lindsay, and congratulations, Lindsay and Diana. I think it's going to be a great year.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mike, did you want to give a comment? No, you just appeared. Great.
So this is
Okay,
Matt, and I just want
please.
to second, I guess, what you've said, Lindsay, regarding the leadership that we've had under Daryl, and also to welcome both of you to your positions here. I'm very happy to be a part of this group, especially under all of the leadership that we've had and that we're having now. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt. All right, I'll open it up for public comments. Are there any comments from the public? All right, seeing and hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. This is Diana.
And this is Emily. I'll second if you need a second.
Perfect. Thank you all. Really appreciate you for taking the time tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.